Perhaps you recognize this man. In late September 2001, only weeks after the tragic events of 9/11, people began receiving emails containing this photo of an unknown tourist, often accompanied by a heart-wrenching text. As one version explains, the guy still has no name and is missing. At first glance, the image is seductively believable. The last photograph taken in the instant before everything changed. The date stamp serves as evidence of the infamous day, a memorial picture of a single man who, like all of us, did not see what was coming. One blogger wrote, "I was horrified by this photograph, a lasting testament to the moment before collective innocence was once again shattered." But the photo was soon debunked and literally deconstructed. Bloggers and journalists pointed out all sorts of inconsistencies. The man is dressed too warmly for a sunny September day. It's the wrong type of airplane, and the observation deck was not yet open when the planes hit. Clearly somebody had sutured together the image with Photoshop or a similar application. And soon a Brazilian man claimed to be the tourist, but apparently he was as phony as the picture itself. And eventually a tourist from Hungary admitted sheepishly that he was the guilty party, claiming he had photoshopped an image of himself from 1997 and circulated it as a joke amongst friends. Regardless of whether this explanation itself was or was not a hoax, clearly the image had gotten out of hand and had already become the property of the folk. A motif or several motifs that would multiply through time and space, referencing popular culture and reflecting critical cultural anxieties, often tinged with the gallows humor common to disaster joke cycles. The original image, that is, the original faked image, became the progenitor of infinite variants in a folkloric process at once traditional and innovative. In some cases, the desire to turn the tables was clearly articulated, while other images sought frivolous humor. And in some examples, the creators celebrate their role within a much longer tradition of hoax and legend, a process of mutual authentication that Diane Goldstein has aptly called legend by association. I first became interested in the tourist guy as a means to demonstrate to an undergraduate class the dynamism of expressive culture. Here we have a perfect example not only of how vernacular expression emerges from the chaos of a particular instant, but of how new media forms inspire rapid transmission and transformation. Photoshopping is a contemporary genre of folk art, requiring technical skills and reflecting the aesthetic sensibilities of often anonymous artist-producers. The circulation of these images follows patterns similar to other genres of folklore. I wanted to show my students how an image can take on new and varied meanings, often parodic or critical, as it migrates through cyberspace and into our own computers. But as I wandered through a hypertextual gallery of photos, I was strangely moved. Each image took on a deeper meaning when read within the context of its variance. Even while smiling at the humor and artistry, I began to sink into melancholia. Zelig-like, the tourist guy is witness to momentous events, but so many of these events are catastrophic. He stands on the edge of the abyss, an obliviously cheerful visitor at these moments of devastating transition. In one image after another, he bears witness to the cataclysm, to the moment of the fall. After a while, his eerie constant presence itself is a presentiment, and he is implicated in a cycle of causality, in which his eager appearance becomes the agent of disaster. In struggling to understand the unexpected poignancy of these images, I realized that a critical theoretical consideration with regard to contemporary media-driven folklore is the process and speed of reception. Sitting for an hour at a computer, we riffle through hundreds of images. The affective and aesthetic experience is not created by a single picture, but by the profusion of pictures. There is a context of production, in which an artist skillfully manipulates an image and sends it out across channels of electronic communication. But there is also a context of consumption, in which each individual text only contributes to a much larger performance. Particularly when we visit a web-based collection, we create on our own computer monitor a performance informed not only by each image's indexical and intertextual relation to other images and cultural products, but by the seemingly inexorable flow of versions and variants compressed in time and space. They build upon each other, gathering aesthetic and emotional intensity in an improvised, unreproducible narrative composed with the clicking of a mouse. Each image in this temporal flow is only a flicker in the larger event produced by faraway, disparate craftspeople. This is the creativity of the mob, a heteroglossic chorus, a set of diverse texts somehow linked and moving in the same direction. The mode of consumption of these images is, to invoke the appropriate web metaphor, a kind of surfing, carried from one wave to another, touching lightly Barely piercing the surface, we finally, perhaps, arrive somewhere. That place of arrival, at least for me, is back at that very first image, but with a deeper feeling for its metaphoric rather than literal implications. Unlike one blogger who raged, some sick fool created a composite image that flies in the face of fact and reason, I would assert that that first picture, along with the hundreds it spawned, eloquently reminds us of our own helplessness and naivete as we observe events in a precariously balanced world. And if the tourist guy signifies this moment before the fall, then the tourist guy image cycle ironically also prefigures another fall from innocence. This one of the craft of Photoshop folklore itself. Just as the first image spawned many more, so the cycle inspires new cycles. In a perfect example of legend by association, our innocent tourist guy has passed the baton to, for example, the often racist portrayals of looter guy that appeared in the aftermath of Katrina. And much more recently, a right-wing blog has attempted to promulgate, so far fortunately with little success, its own meme called Vacation Gal. This time, the protagonist is not an anonymous tourist, but rather different images of Michelle Obama photoshopped into various settings, often accompanied by sexist or politically incendiary comments. In this context, we almost begin to feel nostalgia for those earlier days of lost innocence and pathos, when we believed a camera could survive the fall from the towers. But of course we know that folklore on the internet, like folklore everywhere, can be a powerful and often dangerous mode of expression. Even a guy like the tourist guy is never just an innocent bystander.